Let's talk about the hyperagency of man, as I like to call it. So it turns out I'm actually not the only person that's used this term before. I googled it once, and there's this Reddit post of a woman saying, "Is hyperagency an MRA dog whistle?" It's kind of funny, actually, but it's interesting that I'm not the only person that has coined this phrase or this idea. And obviously the idea of hyperagency is spun out from this point that I was making in the FemCell video that I made. This point right here. As much as we can try to look smack young men and get them presentable and try to make them look good, it is a bit hilarious to me that in the realm of which women actually do need to take responsibility for themselves, we actually have all that fire and fervor for young men to have some hyperagency to take care of themselves, which will lead us into the next video, so stay tuned. Essentially, what I am talking about when I say hyperagency is the idea that men can more or less self-improve to become more attractive to women. And that if you aren't successful with women, then that's your fault. You did something wrong. You didn't do something. Your social skills are poor. Your physical health is poor. The way you look is poor. Something is wrong with you. Women don't like you because there's something wrong with you. That is the clear, not even implied belief that very many people feel. This is a sentiment that is echoed in very many different places. For example, in Shoeonhead's video about male loneliness, in the response to that, or the response that people had, they lamented this in some areas.
Men are lonely because they are terrible people. Most men are born useless and are meant to die alone. These men are 100% the most misogynistic demons on the planet and deserve every bit of loneliness they feel.
So apparently there's a male loneliness epidemic right now.
Is this the consequences of your own actions?
You're just reaping the consequences of your terrible upbringing, your own actions.
Some men are lonely because y'all are fucking creeps.
Now, in another video that I am extremely fond of by a creator that I think is fantastic called FlatTopChicken, he made two videos called Nerdy Black Men Get No Love and the sequel, Nerdy Black Men Still Get No Love. They are excellent videos, and there's probably lots of elements from the second video that I could discuss and probably will discuss in the future. But one criticism that was remarked against him for his first video is as such.
Definitely a skill issue. Maybe you need to re-level your character and put more points into personality IDK.
Hey, I'm trying, man. It's a grind out here.
IDK, bud. It sounds like a skill issue. I got a bad bitch from showing her my dueling lightsaber.
You just not him.
Being a nerd never got any cheeks.
I just said that, Black. Are you listening?
What are you playing to prove with that?
This nigga in particular really didn't like my video.
Imagine getting on YouTube making a whole video about how broke, miserable, and lame you are.
The dude who asked him who he was talking about's account got suspended, but he responded with,
"This goofy ass nigga.
Yeah, at me next time, bitch." Now I decided to do a voiceover for this tweet personally.
Okay, well that's you. I was raised around two nerds alongside my brother, and Mother of us have had issues with being nerds when it comes to dating. I don't know, maybe you're just a walking red flag and you shit talk women who like anime and video games, calling them fake fans?
And so the idea, the ever-present idea that there's something wrong with you if women don't like you is present in lots of different areas. And as such, in very many pockets of the manosphere, such as the more red pill self-improvement side of things, there's a lot of agency crafted or given to young men to be able to change or do something about this. This is Hamza Ahmed's entire brand. He is the proof of concept, which is very important. We'll mention again later that you can be an ugly person and then you can self-improve and change and become not just rich and successful but muscular and handsome, and then you'll have an easy time being promiscuous with women, but you're not actually supposed to be promiscuous with women. It's just, you know, it's just a thing that happens, bro, totally. Which, again, I'll lament or remark about again more as the video goes on. The fact remains, right? The idea and concept of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is definitely a conservative meme, but an important concept in general, that there is agency as a young man, or there is something you can do as a young man to compensate or become more attractive to women. Now, there's a couple of problems there. The idea of compensation itself implies that you're not already attractive to women, that you as the male is not attractive as an end, that the woman doesn't want you as the male, she wants things around you, things about you, you know, that she wants you to do a thing. But you as a person, you who, you know, likes music isn't important. You who gets sad sometimes doesn't need to be comforted. You who wants to share things that makes you happy isn't really what's important here. It's all the things you can provide and give to a woman. And to ever lament the fact that dating is a difficult task or endeavor, again, means that there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you, and you have to do something different to change. Now, again, there's a few problems with that. The first problem is, it's not entirely inaccurate. It's just not the whole picture. It's only a part of the picture, maybe 25% of the picture, really. And that is, it is possible, as in it needs to be acknowledged, that you might not be a good partner for a woman. Ironically, the idea of self-improvement implies that you will become a good partner to a woman by becoming what they like. Again, that needs to be discussed and criticized by itself, but we'll get there. The idea, just from go, right, that self-improvement will make you a better person is most of the aspects that are told to be self-improved upon are not actually aspects of your character, not your morality, not your virtue, not your parenting skills, not your relationship skills, not your ability to be a friend. Ironically enough, for as much as women claim they want leaders, they don't even actually focus on the qualities and traits that does make a good leader, like selflessness, viewing a larger picture, empathy, and understanding other people's wants and desires, which is a little redundant to the empathy thing, but I digress. It's not that you focus on when it comes to self-improvement. It's kind of like the main focus is your like aestheticsness, the appearance of appearing masculine, which ironically enough, you can't understand the concept of masculinity without having a general view of what men are, but again, I digress. It's all surface level, all vain, very shallow, the veneer. Most of the advice that you get told, even there in the pursuit of status and money and all of that stuff, most of the focus, and I've been in this space for well over 10 years at this point, most people, and I'm only being charitable and gracious because, you know, I just don't know every single creator, but most people, I'm the only one I know, and again, to be charitable, there's probably just people I don't know, don't really stop and ever discuss the merits of virtue and character and what it means to be a good, virtuous man. Like when I made my video on like Yusuke Urameshi, that's the type of content we should be having in the manosphere. And again, I'm not just saying that to stroke my own ego, but what I'm saying is there needs to be a focus on the actual character and what it means to be a man as a person, as a spirit, as a being, more than getting big muscles, getting the money. Like most of the people are focused on, again, the surface, the veneer, the status. Why? Because what they really want, what man really desires, what brings men to this space from go, what connects the manosphere all together is, well, men want women. And I'll say it. I want a woman too. I'm not even going to pretend otherwise. I'm not going to sit here and act different or special. Like, I don't know. I want a woman. We all want women. That's why we're here. Well, not entirely, but a huge chunk of why we're here. So we want to get to women. The hyperagency of man to get to women puts them in a position that they really shouldn't be in. You know, I was watching, well, I saw this a while back ago. I think it was Justin Waller, Mark Sartain say this.
Let's understand it. The problem is when you explain it to some red pill guys, they're like, do women like men who are taller? Yes. Well, then fuck those women. No, that's fine. They also like men who are in shape. They also like men who can acquire resources or have the potential. You ever see women, they go after like young military officers, or they go after young residents at a hospital who are going to become full right. doctors. They date those men because they have the potential of gathering massive amounts of resources. And so we realize this, and it's unassailable. There's no study that will show you that that's not true. And it's the truth in every single society. Dr. David Buss did a study of 37 different cultures, found it to be exactly the same in every culture. So here's the thing. Do we hate women now because they want men with higher resources? No. We just need to get fucking higher resources. That's the answer. Right? Well, that's my answer. That might not be your answer.
Absolutely. Look, if I'm walking down a trail and I see a snake and I walk right up to that motherfucker and it bites me, am I really mad at the snake? No. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what guys, they get mad at women. Women are one of the most beautiful, amazing, wonderful parts of this existence as a man. You simply have to do the work required for her to want to create that reality for you. And if you've done that, you'll soon see that women are absolutely wonderful.
They are.
They're absolutely wonderful, especially when they love you and they can get behind you. You know, there's not a more beautiful thing in this world than a woman that looks up to and values a man.
Yeah.
You know, it is what makes doing all this work worth it.
And it annoyed me quite greatly. Because what it's asking males to do is to not analyze the landscape of what is being asked of us. It's to accept what's being asked of us and then do our best to compete and battle with each other to become the top percentage of males so women select us. Now, of course, a lot of these guys love to pretend that women is a byproduct of them focusing on becoming a high-value male and not a huge chunk of what validates them as high-value males to begin with. Make it make sense. But putting aside that great pretending to the back burner, the problem is the hyperagency of male focusing, again, just on the material aspects of man creates an ever, I'm not going to say evolving, but ever elusive standard of being a top male. At a certain point, not every male can even actually reach that upper echelon to be accepted by women to begin with. Every male can't be Hamza. Every male can't be Andrew Tate. Every male can't be Justin Waller. We can't all be Sneeko. We can't all even be FD Signifier. Like, we can't all be a dude that has a large status, large following, is muscular and attractive. Like, we can't all be that dude. Because the world doesn't even require us to be that, and the world doesn't even need everybody to be a self-improvement guru. And even if we're not talking about that, because there's multiple different ways of which you can be a high earner, six-figure salary having dude. It's not just, you know, having an audience and whatnot. Again, there's programming, there's starting a business, entrepreneurship, all that good stuff. The fact remains, not every male can do that. And when that's the standard of what it means to be accepted as a male, you create, again, an elusive, impossible measurement of which to obtain that unfortunately still doesn't actually focus on like the skills it requires and takes to be in a loving relationship with a woman, if that's even the objective or goal to begin with, which is extremely important because being with a woman is what makes people. You know, that whole family unit thing is kind of important or something like that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of hedonism in this idea of hyperagency, right? Or a lot of hedonism in the manosphere that is a video that will be discussing that on its own. But the fact remains that bottlenecking, right, creates the possibility, and a huge possibility, even within the men that ascend, of resentment and disgust and disdain, which is something that I've discussed in a different video before. There's a lot of older videos that I used to see, more from MGTOW side of things, but just generally speaking, a disdain for women. That disdain, honestly, if the premise are true, makes perfect sense, despite the fact that very many people who are proponents of evolutionary psychology say that you shouldn't hate women, you shouldn't disdain women, you should just understand them, portray women as individuals of which only desire your resources. It portrays women as people that are sometimes insatiably hypergamous. The only thing that they desire to do is to just take your money and take your stuff. The only thing that they want from you is you as a doer, a being, a tool, an object to be used. Your status even then just more exists to validate them. Not because having status is good, but because it makes them feel good about themselves. You being muscular and handsome is good because that not only triggers their carnal sexual desire, but relative to the other males, it makes them look special that they got you. You are a tool, a thing to be used for their good. And that's fine. Evolutionarily, it's apathetic. There's no morality here. It's just how they are, man. They just be this way. Jordan Peterson, you know, again, a man I respect and admire quite a bit, We'll say that.
I would say to young men who are irritated at women is, if you're irritated at women, you know, as a class of creature, there's something wrong with you because they're right. You're wrong. They're right to not pick you. If they're not picking you, it's because they're right.
And if women don't pick you, it's not their problem. They don't lose out. It's your problem, right? There's no reason to have grievances about the fact that women have these high standards. You have this other guy here, I forget his name and I don't care, says stuff like this.
Know how many times, and this is why, you know, I'm still fascinated in evolutionary psychology and intersexual and intrasexual dynamics and all of that stuff. It's still very interesting to me. But the whole, like, lambasting women for having standards that are too high, that never was something that really crossed my world of content creation.
There's an acceptance that whatever women want, that it is good unto itself because women desire it. And because women are the mate selectors, or women are the selectors of people who will be sexual participants, you just have to do whatever it takes to appeal to them, and that they can't be wrong. What's interesting is the fact that no one wants to ever say that women can be, and are oftentimes, fucking wrong about just normal decisions they make, let alone the men they decide to have sex with. Are you kidding me? Do you think women are infallible selectors? They only make the right life decisions ever. Like, they never make a wrong turn. No, they only ever turn correctly. They never, you know, go past an exit, right? They never spend more money. They never, you know, buy more things than a trip to the grocery store. Never happens. They're perfect. Whatever they decide or select to do is always right. Now, of course, you would obviously say, well, that's wrong. Women make mistakes all the time. You know, women can be clumsy and trip. You know, women can, you know, make a choice to say something silly or out of pocket to one of their female friends, or they can, you know, be obtuse and not read the room. Like, women can make mistakes. If I were to imply that they can't make mistakes, you'd say I'd lost my flipping mind. But when it comes to the men that they choose to have sex with, now they're infallible. Now the males that they choose is correct. Despite the fact that women complain about the males that they choose, they can't be wrong about the men that they choose. Even though the men that they choose abandon them and they don't like them and they complain about them, that was still correct, because all of this stuff is amoral and we don't care, and happiness doesn't matter, virtue doesn't matter, treating the people that you're supposed to have sex with and care about doesn't matter. None of that matters because they got to have sex. And I guess, of course, if you look at things from just that purely utilitarian view, they were sexually successful, then sure, I guess women aren't wrong, because whatever they choose is right, because that's what gets them to have sex. That's fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous, but that's how a lot of people in the hyperagency, that they have the belief of the hyperagency of young men, that's what they believe. They believe that about black pillars and incels. They believe that about dudes who are in the red pill. Again, notice the way young men were insulted in the shoe on head clip I showed you. Notice how FlatTopChicken was insulted in what I showed you. Notice how I can play all these different clips of how men tell you that you have to strive to the upper echelon of society in order to be selected and cared for by women. Well, not even cared for, but just to be selected by them. We accept that not only can man do something, we also accept that women are infallible when it comes to the selection of man. But one of the biggest problems with the hyperagency of male is that, ironically, there is no agency. It's arbitrarily decided that because women generally select men that have more money than them, generally select men that are attractive and muscular, generally select men that are popular and have status, that that's the correct way to be. It isn't that women could have ever been led astray by this whole ideology that teaches them to not care about men as people. Nay, the last 70-odd years of which that directly pumped into the collective consciousness of women that they don't need us as people. Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about the fact that we literally raise young men to die for women, to protect them, to not hit them, and to do all that they can to appeal to them. That certainly doesn't inflate their egos and makes them incredibly arrogant or anything like that. No, nay. Evolutionarily, they're just correct and right, and as a man, you just have to bend over backwards to become what they desire because they can never be wrong. But that's ridiculous. The whole concept all by itself, as I describe it, I'm sure you guys all hear as I say it out loud, is ridiculous. Not just because women can make bad decisions just on a micro small level, like just, what store to go to, or like what to spend money on, but you think that single mothers only ever made the right choice? You think that women that were in toxic and abusive relationships, they only ever made the right decision? You think women that are lonely and seal men within the friend zone like their name is Minato or Sarutobi only ever made the right choice with the men they should have been with? That's the thing. Hyperagency pretends that it's man who is in control, while ironically having to confirm that it's women that are in control. If man must bend over backwards to change and become what women desire, how in the flip do men actually have any agency when what women desire is totally arbitrary from go? Well, the answer is they really don't. Hyperagency in man, ironically enough, isn't really even true and isn't even a concept that makes sense. But I believe two reasons why people accept it. Reason number one, the reason why women always call this out is because, one, they're arrogant and they've been puffed up by a bunch of dudes that bullshit them so they can have sex with them. That's just part of the whole thing, right? But there's also, two, if women acknowledge that, well, for one, they're also shallow people and that they also arbitrarily select men and men aren't really any different in that regard, they kind of have to give up the ghost of being morally superior. I notice that whenever I mention that women too like handsome and attractive men and will pick dudes for shallow reasons and make concessions, people love to argue and fight with me. If I say that women aren't really endeared to you because you treated them well and that you don't really convince women to date you because of your personality, people bend over backwards and say, that's not true. Women care about your personality, man. And it's like, well, yeah, but if women's perception of your personality is contingent upon how they view you physically, you can't really divorce the two as a concept. And they're like they don't really have a response. It's hilarious. But the reason why I imagine that they can't really accept that from the female's point of view is that they would lose the moral superiority of pretending that they're better than men and they don't need men if they acknowledge that they too are shallow people and they're not really seeking virtue and character when it comes to men to date. Again, this is more general, not all women, but generally, unfortunately, in our generation. But you also have to go on to this. I think a lot of young men defend the hyperagency of man because getting women is the last rite of passage. As in, getting a woman to like you verifies, it confirms that you are a good man. It verifies that there's something special about you because other men can't get that. And other men feel that too. Much in the same way where when you view someone perform a skill that's better than you, whether it's in a video game, whether it's in basketball, whether it's martial arts or whatever, that feeling of awe, of seeing their ability, if you have a healthy mindset and you don't feel a bunch of envy, it's the same thing that gets translated in the faux meritocracy that is game and courting women. If you make it so that you did something particularly special in order to obtain the woman, it validates and it verifies that you are a special man. That's how you get validation. And I imagine that for some dudes, the reason why they have to pretend that dating is a meritocracy when it's really not at this point is because that's where they get a sense of their validation. That's where it gets confirmed that they did something special when really they're just handsome. Now, the hyperagency of man comes with a real dark side, unfortunately. And there's this idea of resentment and disdain that I've seen get built up in men, even if they don't acknowledge it. And that disdain and resentment is something I was alluding to earlier in the video. And that is, when you set up that women don't like you because there's something wrong with you, you've already created a degree of self-loathing in the man, a degree of self-hatred, a degree of disdain for the self that must be purged in order to become worthy of the woman. But that sets up a problem just as a woman. And we don't really even talk about or consider this. I know, you guys think I probably hate women. I really don't. The problem is, that requires that the woman has to be a great person. She has to be a prize worthy to be won. She has to be virtuous and great and kind as well. Because if she's not, if you set up a man to work 10 times harder to get a normal person, that just is okay, what did you create? Not only a degree of expectation that can't be met by women, but the breeding grounds of resentment and disdain. Because what they've worked hard for is not someone that loves them and cares about them, but someone that loves and cares about their stuff. It's not someone that will fight to protect them and make sure they have peace, but someone that has expectations and demands and wants you to maintain and keep providing and giving them things. The problem is, when you pretend that women are the great, virtuous, wonderful prize, instead of just people with their own vices and weaknesses that need to grow and improve as well, the man that has to fight harder to get that can become, not necessarily, but can become quite the villain. He can become quite the F-boy. He can become quite the cruel bastard that doesn't really like women and will use them and manipulate them and discard them. He can become the very thing that women complain about males so much. And the truth of the matter is, it would make sense. It's not good, but it would make sense that a man would be so angry when he finally gets into a relationship and it's with this person that is just meh at best. At worst, it could be a liar, a cheater, a manipulator. It could be someone that isn't a good relationship partner and only made it to be selected because she was pretty and just kind of okay at the time. The point that I'm making is that you can't craft a world where men have to try really, really hard to get women that don't have to try really, really hard. Because what creates such a clash of ideologies is a group of individuals that never really acknowledge or even care about the efforts that got put in to begin with, and don't even respect and value you at all from go, unless you already stand out from the top. But in order to stand out from the top confirms that you as a man was never actually special or good. It's just the things you could give them. And the truth of the matter is, if the only thing that's great about you as a man is the things you could give to women, why would you then in turn care about them? You see, my friends, the reason why so many evolutionary psychologists have to reinforce that you're not supposed to dislike women is because if you accept that view of women, you're kind of fucked up too if you don't. If you somehow find yourself wanting to strive and appeal so hard to a group of people that don't like you, the spirit, you, the man, you, the person with the effort, you, the person that cares, you, the person that gets hurt, you, the person that gets happy, you, the person that wants to share, you, the person that wants to make her life better. If that means nothing, why do you fight for her to begin with? And as such, what creates, or what gets created, I've noticed, is a group of men who do indeed treat women like masturbatory aids. And that's all they can do. All they can do is operate with apathy. Because to operate a form of morality and care, to really look at the virtue of what the modern woman is sometimes, what you get is a vile harpy that only wants to use you. And as such, why should you like that creature? I made a video discussing that a couple of years ago that you guys should probably revisit one of these days that really highlights that idea. I want to make this very clear. I'm not saying that you shouldn't self-improve. That's ridiculous. What I'm saying is that self-improvement should be a byproduct of your existence as a human. We are learning machines. We learn and grow just as a consequence of our existence. That's just what we do. We copy people. We try it out. It doesn't work. We fail and we keep trying. That's just a thing we do. Unfortunately, self-improvement has been marketized, it's not a word, or highlighted into a thing that it really shouldn't be. It should just be the nature, the natural evolution of being a person. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to the relationship between man and woman, man is given a lot of agency that really doesn't exist. Man is told tools of compensation that confirms that he is not loved, that confirms that he doesn't matter. It's only what he creates and produces that does. But the recognition of that can only create what? Transactional relationships at best, and at worst, a man that doesn't like women. A man that truly is misogynistic. That is the dangerous element and the dangerous part, ironically enough, of the hyperagency of man. And ironically, it's not even something that we should pretend is a thing that men have. Men, of course, should always be striving to become better people. Again, don't take this video as an excuse not to. But the way of which you should become a better person should be your virtue, your character. When you value virtue in your character and yourself, from there, you already understand that your vessel, of which God has granted you, must be taken care of. You working out is not a mechanism of which you use to get to women. It's something you do to take care of your body, your vessel, the thing that you exist in this world with. I don't know why I'm doing all of that. You should strive to work harder, to make more money, to make your life as comfortable as it can be. You should strive. Why? Not even for you, but for your children. Because what gets really, really lost and missed in the whole conversation between men and women is not that man works hard so he can get a woman. It's really that man works hard so his children have a better life than him. The way you get the way you get children is through women, but it's not the woman you're working for. You're not even supposed to provide a life for the woman. What gets lost so often is, again, the end of what the relationship between man and woman is not woman with a man that takes care of her. It's woman that takes care of her children. And she's able to do that because she has a man that loves her and them. As a man, the ultimate goal is not to just provide a safe haven for women, not to just self-improve for them, not to just even have frivolous sex with them, but to make sure the life that your babies have is better than yours. The truth of the matter is, the hyperagency of man, this whole self-improvement, it's not even about how do I become a father? How do I become a true blue, genuine leader? What the flip does that even mean? A lot of it, unfortunately, is just stuck on the material. It is just stuck on trying to get more things to be more appealing. And even though lots of the gurus will love to tell you that this is all just a byproduct, the measure of what it means to be a man to them is still just what women want. Not your kindness, not what you do for other people, not your virtue, how you maintain your integrity in a room of people that disagree with you, how you fight and defend your positions.
Okay, I am very sorry that this video ends abruptly, okay? I ran out of lighting, and I ran out of space on my memory card, so the video has to conclude in a rather unorthodox manner, and I apologize. The truth of the matter is there is so much more on the topic of hyperagency that I didn't really cover in this video, despite the fact that it's very long. But we're going to have to save that for what I would hope to be in the future, shorter, maybe about 15-minute videos, kind of focusing more on different elements as well as kind of continuing the train of thought that I had originally. So my hope is that you guys most certainly got something out of today's video. You probably didn't, but if you did, I don't know, man, go and click the like button. Yeah, shoot. Go and click the subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below, and as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I will see you cool cats soon. Adios.